Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're reviewing the 7 best entry-level phones for you. First up, the Redmi A1. It has a 6.52-inch HD display, has an 8 megapixel main camera, and has two main cameras. The main is 8 megapixels and 0.1 megapixels. And has a 5 megapixel selfie camera. Has a headphone jack. Runs Android 12 Go edition, which is like a version, and plus the device is 2 or 3 gigabytes of RAM and 32 gigabytes of internal storage, micro SD card slot. It has GPS, Bluetooth 5.0, 5,000 milliamp hour non-removable battery, no NFC, but charges from micro USB 2.0, and has an FM radio. Quad-core MediaTek Helio A22 processor. Would you buy this phone? And let's next up the Realme C33. Next up, the Realme C33. So, it has a 6.5-inch display with a HD resolution, a 50 megapixel camera, and can record full HD video. So I'll tell you something, guys. More megapixels doesn't necessarily mean better photos. Like a phone, you have 200 megapixels, but if its software is bad, the photos are bad. Has 3 to 4 gigabytes RAM. Is powered by a Unisoc Tiger T612 chip. Android 12, runs Realme UIS, octa-core processor, either has 3 or 4 gigabytes RAM, and 32, 64, or 128 gigabytes of internal storage. Has a card slot. Has 2 cameras. One is 50 megapixels, the other is 0.3 megapixels. Has a 5 megapixel selfie camera. Has a headphone jack. No Bluetooth 5.0, Wi-Fi, GPS, no NFC, and an unknown and a radio. Micro USB 2.0 for charging. All these phones, I think, will have micro USB. Maybe it's because it's more expensive to install Type-C. But these days, even their feature phones, Nokia put Type-C connectors. Next up, the Nokia C12. 6.3-inch HD screen. Has an 8 megapixel camera. And has a 5 megapixel selfie camera. Has a headphone jack, Bluetooth 5.2, Wi-Fi, GPS, no NFC, an FM radio, and micro USB. Has a 3,000 milliamp hour removable battery. And none of these phones will have most of these phones won't have Type-C, it's very likely, and won't support 5G. Next up, the Galaxy A04e. It has a 6.5-inch HD display, runs Android 12 with One UI Core 4.1. Has a MediaTek Helio P35, the same chip that was in the A21 in 2020. Has a micro SD card slot. Comes in either 2 or 4 gigabytes RAM. Has 32 gigabytes, 64 gigabytes, or 128 gigabytes. Has 2 cameras, 13 megapixels and 2 megapixels. and a 5 megapixel selfie camera. Has a headphone jack, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 5.0, GPS, no NFC, and a radio. And this is Type C for charging. Next up, Tecno Spark 12C. Next up, Tecno Spark 10C. It looks like an iPhone. has a 6.6-inch HD screen. 2 cameras. One is 16 megapixels. The other is 0.1 megapixels. What's the point of having a second camera? 0.01 megapixels. That was the same quality of cameras that were in top-end phones in the early 2000s. And 8 megapixel selfie camera. Has a headphone jack. Has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, no NFC, Type C connector for charging, and an FM radio. 5,000 milliamp hour non-removable battery like the Galaxy. Next up, Redmi 12C. So I think this is more serious, right? It has a 6.7-inch HD display, 50 megapixel, 2 cameras. One is 50 megapixels, the other is 0.1 megapixels, 5 megapixel selfie camera, has a headphone jack, has NFC, and an FM radio, but micro USB is the disadvantage. 5,000 milliamp hour non-removable battery. And runs on a Helio G85 processor. Either 32, 64, or 128 gigabytes. 2, 3, 4, or 6 gigabytes of RAM. Next up, the Moto E13. So, it has a 6.5-inch HD display, runs Android 13 Go Edition. Like I said, Go Edition is a special version of Android optimized for low-end hardware. Has a Unisoc T606 chip, similar to our A3804. It has a 13 megapixel main camera and 5 megapixel selfie camera. Has a headphone jack. In fact, all these phones have headphone jacks. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 5.0, GPS, and no NFC, an FM radio, and Type C for charging. 5,000 milliamp hour non-removable battery. So these are the best mid-range phones money can buy these days. And if you'd like to see any more videos, I'd like to know your ideas in the comments. Catch you guys later. All these phones will have SD card slots. So which one do you guys pick if you had this budget and if your life depended on it?